A time for choosing. Over a half-century ago, Ronald Reagan warned about the dangers of a centralized government under socialism. Now it's 2022, and we appear to have an impending red wave of Republicans about to come in to take over Congress. The reasons are clear. Supermarket prices have shot through the roof since Joe Biden took office. Gasoline prices have shot through the roof since Joe Biden instigated an unnecessary war with Russia. And it looks like the entire world is suffering because of the war in Ukraine. Look at the European Union is suffering a cold winter because they were foolish enough to purchase energy from Russia when President Donald Trump warned them not to. At the same time in America, we have a border crisis, again created by Joe Biden, who has apparently not been the leader of his own party. But first, let's take a look at the best that the Democratic Party can offer in 2022. I recently read the memoir of Democrat campaign manager Bob Beckel, and it's edifying reading. I recommend finding this book and reading it in your own time. It doesn't matter to Democrats like Bob Beckel how they get their candidate into office, just that they win, and they will tell any lie and commit any crime to get their guy or gal into office. This is Pennsylvania Senate candidate John Fetterman, who is the most coherent speaker that the Democrats have offered in the midterm elections. Let's listen in.
Mr. Fetterman, we're going to begin with you. Your political experience includes serving as the mayor of Braddock, a small borough near Pittsburgh, and one term as lieutenant governor. You're running for a seat that could decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody. Hi, good night, everybody.
Hi, good night, everybody.
All right, that's it for me. Be good, everybody.
There was a hot mic moment captured on an airport tarmac between Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and the leader of the Democratic Party, Joe Biden. Let's listen in.
He is. That seat, we're in danger of that seat. It doesn't matter if I'm voting or it's close. Let's see. Well, it looks like the debate didn't hurt us too much in Pennsylvania as of today, so that's good. And basically we're picking up steam in the back. The state we'll see how it goes. The state we're going down now. It's hard to believe that they will go for the.
What's telling to me about this tarmac meeting is that it's clear Joe Biden has not been leading his party for the past 2 years in any shape, manner, or form. If Joe Biden was leading the midterm election efforts, he would have already been informed of these things that Chuck Schumer is telling him at the airport tarmac. Chuck Schumer's tone in this hot mic moment is that of a concerned son speaking to a doddering, demented, senile uncle who is only brought out of the basement every few months to be informed of what's going on. Listen again to how Chuck Schumer speaks to Joe Biden, and remember that President Biden, if he's truly in command of his party and of the country, he would not need to be informed of any of this on a chance airport runway meeting. Listen again.
He is. That seat, we're in danger of that seat. It doesn't matter if I'm voting or it's close.
The 2022 midterm elections are very important for our country. If you like high gas prices, vote for Democrats. If you like an open border, vote Democrat. If you like unnecessary artificial wars that make the friends of the Democratic Party rich, then vote Democrat. There is another alternative, and it was voiced by Ronald Reagan over 50 years ago. Let's listen in on what Ronald Reagan warned about.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. Not too long ago, two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down. Man's old age dream, the ultimate in individual freedom consistent with law and order, or down to the ant-heap of totalitarianism. And regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. In this vote harvesting time, they use terms like the Great Society, or as we were told a few days ago by the President, we must accept a greater government activity in the affairs of the people. But they've been a little more explicit in the past, and among themselves, and all of the things I now will quote have appeared in print. These are not Republican accusations. For example, they have voices that say the Cold War will end through our acceptance of a not undemocratic socialism. Another voice says the profit motive has become outmoded. It must be replaced by the incentives of the welfare state. Or our traditional system of individual freedom is incapable of solving the complex problems of the 20th century. Senator Fulbright has said at Stanford University that the Constitution is outmoded. He referred to the President as our moral teacher and our leader, and he says he is hobbled in his task by the restrictions of power imposed on him by this antiquated document. He must be freed so that he can do for us what he knows is best. And Senator Clark of Pennsylvania, another articulate spokesman, defines liberalism as meeting the material needs of the masses through the full power of centralized government. Well, I, for one, resent it when a representative of the people refers to you and me, the free men and women of this country, as the masses. This is a term we haven't applied to ourselves in America. But beyond that, the full power of centralized government, this was the very thing the Founding Fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. They also knew, those Founding Fathers, that outside of its legitimate functions, government does nothing as well or as economically as the private sector of the economy.
It is a time of choosing, a time for choosing the path to socialism, or a time to steer America's ship of state back to conservative values. The choice in 2022 is yours. Thank you.